Okay, Megan, I want to do a magic trick for everybody who's listening in on our video.
Okay.
Give me any statement or problem.
How do I get home from this meeting today?
Good question. Why does that matter to you?
Well, because I have to get home by a certain time.
I see. And what's interesting there in that moment is that Megan and I have illustrated the power of a single implementation of this really curious statement, why? Why do you want to get home? Why do you want to take the bus? Why are you mad about how much it costs? No matter what the problem statement is or the anchoring prompt, we know that why, getting to the root cause, is a really powerful motivator for us to invest. But Megan, this idea around 5 whys or problem statements seems so intuitive that oftentimes people don't know how to use it. So why don't you walk us through an example about why a series of connected whys, let's say 5, is truly a powerful design thinking mechanism that we can deploy in our day-to-day life.
So when we're trying to employ design thinking or solve problems, it's really important for us to have the right problem to solve.
I see.
Right? We want to be making sure that we're solving for the right thing. So the way that I talk about 5 whys is that I describe a scenario that if many of us who are parents may have experienced, right? And that is your kid comes home from school and they tell you that they're very hungry.
I feel seen.
Right? Okay. So your kid comes home from school and they tell you that they're hungry. If I wanted to solve that design problem, I could solve it right then and there, right? I could give them a cookie and send them on their way. But maybe I don't think that's the real problem and I want to get a little deeper,
okay.
Right? So they come home from school and they say, I'm hungry. And I say, why? And they tell me, it's because I didn't eat my lunch today.
Oh, I see.
Right? So now I have a new problem that I could be solving. My kid didn't eat their lunch today. What do I do about that, right?
Okay.
How do I solve that problem?
I've also heard this.
Okay, I'm sure you have, right? So maybe I say, why didn't you eat your lunch today, right? And they say, oh, because they served me chicken and I'm a vegetarian, right?
See.
Now I have a new problem to be solving, right? Okay, well, why is the school serving my kids something that they can't eat or don't want to eat, right? And then there's lots of different ways that I would solve that problem. Maybe I say, well, why did they serve you chicken, right? And that opens up another problem and another problem and another problem.
Nice.
And eventually I can find sort of the root problem, which in this case might be, I have to call the school and let them know that my kid's a vegetarian and need some different options.
I see. Or maybe I need to download the new app that helps me pick the menu, or take the printed schedule and circle the days that there's going to be meat.
Right? There's a real problem somewhere in there that I could solve. If I focused all my design efforts on the first problem, my kid is hungry, I'm going to have totally different solutions from that last problem, which is I need to figure out how to help my kid have vegetarian choices at school.
I see. Okay, so what's interesting about when you were taking me through that story, even though it felt like something I experienced maybe multiple times a day, if you are a caregiver with anyone under the age of 12, I assure you this is a frequent challenge. What I found really interesting and empowering about your story is, oftentimes around simple problems, we have a tendency to react with our superficial bias. So what is most recently in my purview, or what's the app that I just deployed, or the tactic I just tried?
Right.
And there's a couple things that were happening when you were guiding me down this tunnel or this journey. One, I started to ask myself, am I going deep enough on this problem, or what level of investment or exploration am I willing to have?
Right.
The second thing which I really appreciated was, I was thinking that there was a behavior change process on my side. Then I saw you expand this to maybe there's a school administrator that needs to be involved, or of course the student themselves, or there might have been tools or processes like an app or a printed calendar of food options that were also really interesting to me. But then you pushed me even further and I started considering, objectives and goals of the person I'm trying to serve. Was it a life stage style or a life stage decision or whatever it might be that comes in this motion? So what started as a simple, I want to figure out the problem of how do I get my child to stop whining at me when I'm super busy like we all are these days, became this interesting evolution in a much more empathetic and expressive way around what's really the root cause.
Absolutely.
Now, what's the risk if I don't do the 5 whys?
Well, so there's a problem in front of our face, right? In this particular case, your kid is hungry and there's a problem that needs to be solved now, which is that they need something to eat, right?
Sure.
We could just solve that problem.
Peanut butter and jelly for the win.
Exactly. Peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and the next day, what happens?
They're still hungry, I assure you, at 3:30 or 4 in the afternoon.
They're hungry again, and that's because hamburgers were on the menu, right? But if we never get deep enough into the problem, we kind of keep having that first thing come up, without actually solving the root cause, which we've mentioned, which is the problem that starts all the other problems.
So it's interesting. Well, if we turn our attention to the template we've created together, there's not only this idea of what are the 5 whys, but also this concept of abstraction. And so if I zero in on this kind of very technical example we've zeroed in on around the idea of a bug coming to light or developer ways of working, now what I'm also hearing you tell me is I don't need to just think about things that I'm firsthand aware of, right? I could take and capture these insights, these pains, these opportunities in the people that I'm interacting with and then decide through a series of consecutive questions, is there a root cause that they can articulate?
Absolutely.
Now my one question for you here, Megan, is what if I can't push the people that I'm talking through all the way through all 5 whys? Is it okay to stop at 3 if they just don't seem to be able to articulate a differentiated level of detail?
It's okay to do that. As we see with something like abstraction laddering, after a while, sometimes the answers to the question why just get bigger and bigger and bigger and harder to solve, right? So we're really just trying to find the root cause of the problem, and we can stop where we feel like, okay, this is really what's causing this problem right in front of my face that I can solve.
Excellent. Okay, so our template does a couple of things. So first, it allows you to create a problem statement. As you've seen here, I was already talking a little bit about a bug when someone's writing software taking longer than it necessarily should have to ship or deliver. What I'm also interested in this is that, this may not have been, as you described it, the problem on the surface, right? I might have been talking about teaming or staffing or the hours that I'm working. I may not have actually been talking about specifically a bug.
Right.
Then what I'm enjoying here is there's a little bit of the how and why that's reinforcing from some of our fundamental tenets of the abstraction ladder, right? At the end of the day, as I move up in my ladder, I'm exploring more about how and when I might ultimately bring resolution or solution. Where I go down on my ladder, I'm actually exploring why or more of those root causes.
Exactly.
Okay, interesting. So now we have a template that not only allows us to start with the 5 whys, but organize those whys around the how and the why we're going to explore towards a solution. Now, what's also interesting in our template here is we've created multiple problem statements.
Right.
Now, is there a right or wrong starting place if we think about the why scenario with exploring hunger or your child like we just gave?
Sure. So in this particular case, we might all start with the same big question. The example that we've given is like, why isn't our software selling, right? And the process of each of us asking why may lead us in a little bit of a different direction.
I see.
That's okay at this point. It's probably good to have a lot of different thoughts on that particular topic that we can then come back to and look at with the lens of saying which one of these feels right, which one of these feels like it's closest to the root cause that we might be able to solve.
Yeah, well said. And in fact, what I love about what you're highlighting here, what I've done in the past is taken my table of 5 whys independent of the ladder and just said, okay, what was the second why across these 3 personas? Are they the same or are they different? And I loved how you talked about the divergent effect of going really broad and then curiously enough, wondering if our root cause is the same at the end or not. Because as we know, through the different articulations and complexity that we're all trying to tame, some people are really good at being like, this is my root cause. Here is my problem. I'm vegetarian, right? Other people might take 2 or 3, or in this case, 5 steps to get us to the real core issue that they're trying to express. So not only seeing how they progress from left to right in a linear fashion, but also comparing one persona to the next helps us understand if we can invest in the same root cause together, or if there's actually 2 or 3 root causes we have to address.
Absolutely. And the real magic happens when we discover, oh, day after day, it's this vegetarian issue that's coming up over and over again. And we can see, oh, this is the thing I really need to solve. It's always consistently this thing. That's the best case scenario here.
Well said, Megan. Okay, so no matter if you're exploring on the surface the most complex or simple issue, let Megan's challenge be a challenge for yourself. Go at least 5 whys deep. Figure out if you expire all the creative thinking, the why it will or won't work, and bring that together under the same template or roof. Make sure to realize that there's no right or wrong answer in the why. It's just the way that someone can express how they are feeling in the moment. Ultimately, with your job as the racer is still being tried to consolidate and do synthesis to see if there's a trend or a pattern that we can ultimately act on. Megan, any final words of wisdom for coaching before we move on to the next video?
No, I think just try to solve the right problem.
Well said. Don't settle for the surface. As Megan said, find the root cause, and we'll look forward to your feedback and your own lived experience trying this very practical, but oftentimes hard to master solution or problem. Talk to everybody soon. Good luck on your own adventures.